Scream 6 made news this weekend in a way that annoyed me a little bit. One, because I myself love the first. I love the first 3 Scream movies. The fourth one is fine, but those first 2 ones hold a very special place in my heart because they were part of my childhood, 1996, 1997. And Neve Campbell, being the star of those movies, is a very important part of my childhood too. And what they seem to be doing with these...
You hear that, Neve? You're an important part of Brett's childhood.
Exactly. You can call me. What they seem to be doing here with these headlines, which are all like this. They're all... I'm just going to put it on the screen and then we're going to go back to the regular shot. It says, Scream 6, new franchise record, new franchise box office record. No Neve Campbell, no problem. No, you are wrong. Okay. The point here, guys, is that they're making it seem like this was the biggest box office opening of any Scream movie. The problem is they're not counting inflation. And inflation matters in something like this, right? So this movie opened to $44.5 million. Well, that's a lot of money. That's fine, right? But what you'll find is that the second Scream movie opened to $32.9 million. But when you adjust that for inflation, it opens to $61,567,600. That is your biggest. And what I think it says more than anything is that a sequel is where you might reach the highest point for a film, because the first Scream movie came out of nowhere, so you wouldn't have expected it to have the biggest box office draw, because the reason the first Scream movie was successful wasn't because of a big initial pump at the box office. What happened was it had extremely long legs, meaning that it stayed in theaters and in the top 5 and 10 for a very, very long time.
Was that true of the other ones too?
No, not in the same way, right? So, and to be fair, in the first Scream is still the most financially successful when you adjust for inflation out of all of these movies. Now, that's not to say that this movie won't make money. This movie cost $35 million to make. And by the way, I'm not including marketing or budget in it, like in any of this. I'm just going based off opening weekend numbers. So it cost $35 million to make. It's already made $44.5, but they only keep about 60% of that box office. So 40% of that goes back to the theaters, right? But the problem is, here's why does Hollywood have to feel like they have to constantly lie to make things seem better than they are? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
like,
does.
why are they doing that? Like,
I feel like they're trying to do it to justify themselves, you know?
But why is TMZ doing it? Like, I get why something owned by the site or by MGM, or no, I guess this would be Miramax. So I don't know who owns the Scream, if it's still Miramax, if Miramax is still a thing, or I guess it's Paramount now, right? So like, I would understand why Paramount would want to champion this narrative, but why don't any of these newspapers ever just say like, hey, look, it's doing good, but it's not doing Scream 1 or Scream 2 numbers? Well,
when you were looking this up, did a lot of other outlets have this take?
Yes. So I actually have.
For me, it just comes down to like people who don't understand how the economy works. And I am like by no means a professor here, but you have to account for inflation. That would be the same thing as saying like
they never do.
Company sold for this. That's equivalent to this in these days.
I just pulled up the Google results because I wanted to share this with them. So Variety, Scream 6 hits 22 million internationally, setting franchise opening records in 29 markets. Scream 6 even louder with 44 million, franchise opening record. Like, it's like they're all pulling from.
It is a record technically, but it's not. You have to put it on scale. You have to see compared to something else. I don't think Neve is upset about this because, you know, also when you are going to this movie, everything in the world costs more. Well,
and Neve is maybe annoyed because, look, I think that the movie would have done better with her.
Yeah.
I do.
All hail Neve, right?
Well, I guess technically they have Jenna Ortega, who's like the biggest name in Hollywood, right? Who's one of the biggest names in Hollywood right now.
But did Neve not have to be there for Jenna Ortega to be there? Like they could have both been there.
They could have both been there.
And I feel like that would have united like new Hollywood ingenue with this like legacy character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they try to do that with the fifth one. Like I am not going to see the sixth one in theaters. No Neve, no Neve, no peace.
Wow.
No Neve, no peace.
Protest from Brett.
I also got mixed reviews. Like some of I have like 3 or 4 review channels where like you watch enough of them and you kind of get a sense to like where their views on movies fit with yours, and you can figure out like the stuff that they really like is the stuff you kind of like, the stuff they hate you also hate. where you sit on it. I got some very good reviews from personal friends who said they saw it and they thought it was great, and they thought it was a great continuation that does better than the fifth one. I got a couple that said it was horrible and awful, but that's all up to personal taste, right? But I want to know why the media can't, maybe to your point, you're the one who's always telling them that they need to make new things. I'm usually the one who's here defending, look, it made money. And to be fair, this movie will make money. It will become profitable. This type of horror movie that costs minimal to make, minimal to budget, long legs, will always do well in theaters, especially when it's got the name recognition of a Scream series attached to it.
And people do go to it out of tradition. I get that.
But the idea could be that if they were to be a little bit harsher in their critiques of these films, maybe some of these franchises would die faster and allow room for new things to be born out of it.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's totally true.
Like, is there any way in which you could have seen this done like more charitably by the people writing these articles?
Well, I just think it's a misleading headline. Like that's what bothers me. I guess technically it is a franchise record, and I'd want to see it compared to the way they write about other movies or even like sales of buildings. Like when you talk about, because writing about the economy is very difficult. Like you have to be really precise in your understanding. And so I'm not surprised that like TMZ writer who normally doesn't write about this economy, stuff, maybe doesn't get the implications of inflation. But
they did the same on the Hollywood Reporter, and the Hollywood Reporter gets into the weeds.
And
with
that's
numbers.
where it's like, I think you guys are misrepresenting what's going on because you're trying to push a narrative. It's hard not to see bias in that.
Hey, I'm admitting I am a pro Nev Campbell. I have my own bias on this.
Right. I mean, of course, they're just wrong on principle, on face. But like, I think it is worth pointing out that this is true of all kinds of franchise movies right now.
Yeah.
And if you can't see the different, like if you can't see the impact of inflation, you aren't able to totally gauge perspective. Someone saying like, oh, it set new box office record would think that suddenly the series has become increasingly more popular, right? Like that maybe there was a sudden surge and there was a renaissance of Scream, and all these kids whose parents love Scream are now watching it, and like, but that's not really what's happening. They're just saying that now that the world is the most expensive it's ever been, this movie made more money because money means less.
It's funny too because I have like a deep affection for this franchise, right? Like I one of the first things when I restarted Twitter, one of the first things I posted was the importance of like, everyone has scenes in movies, or I guess if you love movies, you do, that stick with you for a very, very long time. They're just ingrained in your brain. And to me, it was the final scene in Scream, not even an important scene. It's literally the final shot in the movie as a crane is panning away from Gail as she's setting up her camera to go back into the house she just survived almost getting murdered in. And the song First Cool Hive by Moby plays, and it pans over the valley to this sunrise. And that scene, which I saw when I was, I don't know how old, 12 years old, 10 or 11 years old, still resonates with, I would have been 10, I'd have been 11.
It's really powerful.
It's really, really powerful. So look, I understand why they continue to make them. I understand that they make money, but for this one, without Nev Campbell, I just don't wonder why they don't, and they should have done the same thing for Avatar. They weren't counting for inflation.
Yeah.
Like it's still going to be the biggest box office movie of all time.
To me, it comes across as like this Scream PR agent contacted TMZ and said, hey, I've got a press write-up for you, and here's a quote, and I'm going to write it, and then you use the information I sent you. This is super normal in journalism, and it's not always bad, but they're saying, here's a press release on ours. We broke a record, and actually the journalists should do their due diligence and say, oh no, they have earned more money, but in comparison, they've actually placed. Because I would be interested, like, did Scream 6, let's say Scream 1 does the best.
Yeah.
Is Scream 6 in second or third place? Like, which one really was the worst Scream in terms of profitability at the box office?
The fourth one, I believe. Yeah, the fourth one was adjusted for inflation, the fourth one was the least profitable out of all of them. But what's funny here is, like, just think about this. The fifth one came out last year, and there's already inflationary numbers.
Yeah.
Here, Scream 5, which came out in the year 2022, cost $24 million to make. Well, that would be $25.5 million now. And the opening weekend was 30 million, which means it would have been 31.9 million now, and its box office total was 137 million, which would be 145 million now if it had come out this year. it bothers me because those first two and the second one, 61 million is a lot for a movie that cost only 32 million, or that only cost 24 million to make, or in this case, 44 million adjusted for inflation. But that first Scream movie, which had the lowest budget and the lowest opening weekend, is still the highest grossing out of all of them at $334 million. But it just shows you, like, there's so much to box office. And a lot of times, like, what you have to think about is, like, when you look at those numbers, think about how little they actually make on these movies. Cut all of those numbers in half, and that's all they took home from that. And that's not including, like, what goes to... So a lot of those actors have clauses in their contract that gets more based on profitability, back end deals based on video rental sales.
Right.
Like, most of the money that these people would have made wouldn't be from these box office totals. It would have been from the home video sales.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't see...
Which, like, this movie won't have, right?
Because everything's going to go straight to streaming when it gets done. And streaming is choking on just a limited number of subscribers. People are only able to pay so much per month for subscription services. And not everyone's going to have Paramount Plus, which I went on a rant this weekend, because Paramount Plus has the absolute gall to put a 15-second ad at the front of movies when you pay for the ad-free tier.
That seems crazy.
That seems
a direct violation of what they're advertising.
And it's for Paramount. It's an ad for their own streaming service at the start of a movie.
That's crazy. Have you ever been in, like, a Buffalo Wild Wings, and then you watch a Buffalo Wild Wings commercial on, like, their giant TVs because they're playing sports? Like, I feel like you guys don't understand. I'm here.
I'm already here. You don't need to do that.
No. Okay, let me ask you a question, and this is very serious.
Okay.
Would you want Neve to play Jasmine in a live-action remake of Aladdin?
I don't think Neve Campbell can play Jasmine. I don't
Why
think.
not?
I think she's too old now.
What if it's like an adaptation where it's older?
Is it like old Jasmine?
No, they're like parents now. They're ruling
then
the
they're
kingdom.
race swapping her. No, they cannot have Neve Campbell play Jasmine. She could play Cinderella.
Okay.
They'd have to dye her hair blonde.
Maybe she'd be happy about that. Or Snow White. Maybe she wants to be an older Snow White.
They could do. Well, are there any? Who are the dark-haired princesses? Are there, besides Jasmine?
Snow White.
Is
She's got black hair.
She got okay. One of those.
I don't know. This isn't really
again. I don't have. I'm not one of the. I don't know a lot about the Disney princesses, but it says.
I don't know. You've named multiple today, so I'm feeling like this is a secret hobby of yours.
It's like secretly on the weekends. I don't actually watch Tom Cruise movies. I watch Disney princess movies. That's actually my thing.
What Disney princess is Tom Cruise, do you think?
Ooh. I feel like he wouldn't be a princess.
What Disney heroine is he? Hero?
Who would he be? He could be Aladdin. I'll let him be Aladdin. They can race swap him.
I was gonna wonder if you're gonna say Flynn Rider from Tangled.
Oh.
He's like the male hero.
Maybe.
Suave and sliding. He does like lots of stunts. He slides down buildings and stuff.
No, you know what? He can be Mufasa.
Tom Cruise as Mufasa.
Yes, Tom Cruise.
I love it.
Tom Cruise can be Mufasa.
Disney, call us immediately. We have great casting ideas.
It's funny. I watched because there is going to be a Mission Impossible movie this summer. I watched.
Of course, why not?
I watched Mission Impossible Fallout this weekend, and
so they started just giving them names instead of numbers because it's gotten too ridiculously high.
Once they got to 4, they started giving them Ghost.
So people like me would be like, oh, maybe it's a new movie.
Yeah.
Instead, it's not.
I don't
it's
even
just a 100th edition.
Maybe
of the
somebody
same
knows.
franchise.
Maybe the first 3 had names, but I don't think so. It's just MI1, MI2, MI3. But then it was Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation. Yeah,
these sound like they could be men's deodorants. You know what I'm saying?
They kind of are.
Rogue Nation.
Look, they
smells like sandalwood.
It's so great. Like, my favorite part of watching those movies is then going back and watching the honest trailers that talk about them, and they do talk about they're like. The movies are so interchangeable that it's just Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt, and then he's like, one guy's like, "I'm 5 movies in, and I just call the character Ving Rhames plays Ving Rhames." It doesn't matter. They don't have names. They're just these people. Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames.
I remember watching the first Bourne movie, or like, what are the Bourne movies?
Jason
Bourne.
I watched The Bourne Supremacy this weekend.
Okay. None of those characters have names.
No.
You cannot tell me any one of them has a name.
Those are even better
Like,
honest
go,
trailers.
Captain.
They do a thing where they go, or you can watch The Bourne Identity, where Jason Bourne gets in a car crash.
With like unnamed supervillain, or like, you know what I mean?
And it's every movie is the exact same thing. It says, and then a bunch of people stare at screens, and then there's a traitor in the government,
and they
they're
don't even
all the
really
same
name
thing.
whatever agency he works for. I know someone's gonna be mad about this.
I mean,
but
it's
it's
just,
like,
I mean, it's
it
the
doesn't
CIA.
matter. It's irrelevant.
It's the CIA.
It's the CIA,
but
it's the more secret CIA. It's the SCIA.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't. Nothing is real.
No, but here's the thing. I love those movies because the best description they made was they talk about how they're superbly directed except for the action, which looks, because it was like shaky cam, they say, where it looks like they strapped a GoPro to a meth head. And it totally is. If you watch those movies, you'll get sick to your stomach because there's so much of the camera.
That's so interesting.
And most of the movie is really just Jason Bourne looking concerned while walking through train stations. Well, walking fast through
I
train
wonder
stations.
if different countries like lobby, like the tourism boards lobby the Bourne series to be like, come film in our train station. It's beautiful.
At a certain point, I
Like
don't
the
know.
Estonian travel board is like, we've got a train station. Come film here.
Yeah. Well, since
and then
getting
all the
a
people
bigger,
were like, I want to go travel to Estonia. Jason Bourne blew up this train station. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh well, I mean, like people go to like platform 9 3/4, like platform 9 and 10 in.
But it'd be way more
London.
interesting if it's like, come bring your action hero. You're gonna make 27 of these movies anyways. You might as well feature us in one. And they always have the like type thing where it's like do 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 do, like whatever.
Yeah.
This country.
I love the Bourne movie. They're a little bit, they're not suave like the Bond movies. They're more visceral. I do have a harder time connecting with the characters in the Bourne movies because they're so interchangeable.
And there's no development of characters.
No.
Like that's not the point.
He's
of the Bourne
essentially the
movies.
same person at the end of the last one. But I do love it because they have Julia Stiles, and as a child of the '90s, you have crushes on Julia Stiles and Rachel Lee Cook.
We need a whole episode devoted to the women of the '90s that you support.
Oh,
That'd be the
man.
best pro-feminist episode for Pop Culture Crisis.
I could go off for.
I don't understand. Where is this exclusive content?
I could make that like like somebody will have to let me know if
the '90s women's that you should show your daughters by Brett.
Rachel Lee Cook is from Minnesota, so I have to doubly support her because she's from Minnesota.
Oh my gosh, where is this rant? I need to see it.
Who doesn't love She's All That or Save the Last Dance? Those were masterpieces, products of their time. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.